The chandeliers of the Metropolitan Pavilion burned bright against the deep velvet night. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks, slicing the air with flashes of white as Hollywood's elite and political heavyweights drifted between velvet ropes, each step measured, every smile a calculation. At the far end of the grand stage, Karoline Leavitt emerged, a navy blue dress, clean lines, no glitter, no games. Her heels clicked once against the polished floor as she approached the microphone. The crowd's murmur dulled to a cautious hum. Eyes turned, phones lifted. On the front row, Michael B. Jordan sprawled confidently, jacket undone, an easy smirk stretching across his face. His arms crossed lazily as if the stage were his living room. Cameras caught the gleam in his eye, the slight tilt of amusement playing at the corner of his mouth. Karoline adjusted the mic with a small flick of her wrist, shoulders straight, head high. Her voice cut through the tension, measured and sharp. Tonight wasn't about celebrities or photo ops. Tonight was about honoring true public service over hollow fame. Michael shifted slightly in his seat, whispering something to the actor beside him. A low chuckle escaped. His smirk grew. Across the stage, Karoline saw it. Challenge accepted. The storm was coming. Karoline leaned into the microphone, her voice cutting steady across the room. Tonight, we honor those who serve, not those who seek applause. The words slid across the velvet air. Like knives, a few claps stirred politely in the back, but near the front, unease crept in like smoke. Michael B. Jordan shifted again, lazily, and leaned toward the actor next to him. His voice wasn't hidden, not careful, loud enough for nearby cameras to catch. "She's cute," he said, grinning. "Trying so hard, bless her heart." A soft chuckle answered him. Another ripple of laughter rolled behind it, this time from a small pocket of young influencers clumped together, their badges flashing under the stage lights. Karoline didn't blink. She turned a page of her notes slowly, deliberately, letting the pause drag. The silence swallowed the room, inch by inch. "And yet, here we are," she continued, her tone untouched, "celebrating those who do, over those who only pretend." Michael laughed again, fuller now. He slapped the armrest, drawing sideways glances. The laughter trickled nervously from his corner, barely polite, half afraid. Journalists perched near the stage, zoomed there. Cameras in closer. Live streams flickered online, capturing the unease. Comments started pouring in. Who's he laughing at? Is he serious during a public service speech? Karoline lifted her eyes and found Michael sitting there, grinning as if daring her to lose her footing. Flashbulbs caught the moment, her expression calm, his dripping with smugness. Her fingers pressed lightly against the podium, the room balanced. On the edge of a knife, one wrong breath and the night would tilt against her, another young politician made into a meme, mocked, discarded. But Karoline didn't shrink. She tightened her notes with one hand. She took one small step closer to the mic. Across the room, a few in the crowd leaned forward, sensing the shift. The ones who had seen too many speeches collapse under the weight of cheap celebrity sneers. They watched now with narrowed eyes. Michael stretched his legs casually, shooting a look of pure amusement toward a director sitting 2 rows back. His shoulders shook with another laugh. Karoline spoke again, but her voice changed soft but deliberate, each word heavy enough to bend the air. "It's easy," she said, "to mock those who choose service over self." The laughter sputtered out like a candle blown too hard. "You don't need courage," she added, her gaze never leaving. "The front row, you just need a camera." A low murmur buzzed across the room. Journalists tapped furiously at their phones. Live stream audiences swelled by the thousands. Twitter hashtags started breathing to life. Service over self, grand liberty, drama. Michael laughs. Michael's grin widened. He leaned further back, arms stretching along the chairs beside him. King of his own little empire. Another sharp comment tumbled from his lips, louder this time. "Some people just don't know when to quit." The actor next to him snickered without looking. Karoline stood tall, letting the words hang in the air like dirty laundry caught under a harsh spotlight. Her heart thudded once, hard against her ribs, but her face didn't show it. Not tonight. She flipped to a blank page, no notes needed anymore. Across the glowing screens, thousands of viewers waited, breathless, typing furiously. Will she respond? Clap back, Karoline. End him! She glanced around the packed hall once, taking in the rows of polished suits and sparkling gowns. So many wanted her to slip, to crack, to prove every whispered insult right. Karoline leveled her gaze straight ahead, cutting through the artificial glamour, past the cameras, past the mocking faces. This wasn't about applause, this was about something real. She leaned forward. The real speech was about to begin. The room held its breath as Karoline adjusted the mic, a small, knowing smile. Brushing her lips, her voice dropped lower, slower, slicing through the velvet of polite applause and flickering camera flashes. "We live in a time," she said, "when applause is currency, when performance is mistaken for leadership." Michael shifted in his seat, spreading his arms wider across the velvet chair, flashing a grin as if to say, "Is she talking about me?" He nudged the actor next to him, who laughed into his champagne glass. Karoline continued, her tone now threading sharpness through every word. "And some have become so addicted to applause, they forget who they're pretending to serve." A ripple moved through the front rows, tiny gasps, shifting glances. A few journalists leaned closer to their live stream setups, recognizing the energy shift. Michael leaned back, tilted his head, and flashed a dazzling smile toward the cameras, soaking up the attention. The stage lights caught the mockery in his eyes, and the lenses caught it too, zooming in, recording every second. Across X and Instagram, hashtags began to sprout like wildfire. Michael mocks, Liberty laughs, awards gone wrong. Karoline didn't rush. She let the tension stretch, stepping once to the side of the podium, making the stage her own. "It's not just about what you say in front of a microphone," she said, her gaze cutting straight through the glittering crowd. "It's about what you say when you think no one's listening." Michael's grin widened, almost daring her to go further. He clapped slowly, 3 sarcastic slaps of his palms that echoed awkwardly across the ballroom. Someone 2 rows back coughed to hide a nervous laugh. Another glanced at their phone, catching the tidal wave of online reaction building in real time. Karoline smiled faintly, not for the cameras, not for the crowd, but because the trap was already snapping shut. "Fame without integrity is hollow," she said, "and sometimes the loudest laughs are hiding the deepest cracks." More whispers now, louder, braver. A murmur of unease slid through the glittering audience. Michael's friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats, glancing toward the VIP section at the back where serious faces, men and women in crisp uniforms and dark suits, watched silently. Still, Michael leaned forward, elbows on knees, fingers steepled under his chin like a king humoring a court jester. Karoline's voice sharpened just a hair. "I've heard stories," she said. "Stories about those who mock service, who belittle sacrifice when they think no cameras are around." The entire front row stiffened. Someone's glass clinked sharply against their plate. Michael's smile twitched, barely, but it was enough. The live streams caught it. The internet exploded. Abba and smile slips trended within minutes. Screenshots flew across TikTok, Snapchat, and every corner of the internet faster than champagne could be poured. Karoline moved back behind the podium, giving Michael no more direct glances, offering no satisfaction of a personal showdown. Her war was not with one man. It was with an idea, a sickness of ego and arrogance that needed to be confronted. "And tonight," Karoline said, raising her voice just enough to make the chandeliers tremble, "service gets its voice back." A stunned pause, cameras flashing, breathless tension curling around every table. Michael straightened in his seat, the first beads of uncertainty forming just beneath his smirk. Karoline flipped a page of her notes with deliberate care, giving all of them a moment to feel the weight of what was coming next. The crowd knew now. Something bigger than a speech was about to happen. Something they wouldn't be able to unsee. Karoline leaned closer to the microphone, her voice now a hammer masked in velvet. "You see," she said, tapping her finger lightly against the podium. "Service is not measured in how loudly you clap for a soldier once a year, but in how you respect them when no one's watching." The room, shimmering under chandeliers and artificial smiles, seemed to tighten around her words. Michael shifted again. His confident lean stiffened. His fingers tapped a nervous beat on his knee. The cameras didn't miss it, neither did the millions watching. Online, Karoline's eyes found him, held him for a fraction of a second, then moved on as if he wasn't even worth the energy. "Behind the jokes, the champagne, and the selfies," she said, "there are people who gave up birthdays, weddings, futures for the same country you laugh at when the cameras are off." A silence so thick it was almost tangible hung in the air. Even the servers stopped moving. In the back, the serious-faced figures in suits and uniforms exchanged brief, pointed looks. Karoline took a breath, letting the silence sharpen itself into a blade. "And some," she said, her voice slicing through the stillness. Think that fame makes them untouchable, that their jokes can't hurt anyone, that their ego is more important than sacrifice. Michael's face, still wearing that practiced grin, had started to falter at the edges. His hand brushed his jacket, smoothing it, a nervous tick. The mask was cracking. Karoline flipped another page almost lazily. She wasn't rushing, she was savoring. I was sent something, she said, pulling out a small piece of paper, folded neatly. An audio clip. The journalists in the front leaned forward sharply, microphones turned, cameras adjusted. Michael's friends, the same ones who had been laughing earlier, shrank in their seats. Karoline unfolded the paper slowly, letting the tension draw tighter and tighter, a bowstring ready to snap. An audio clip, she repeated, of private conversations, caught when someone thought the world wasn't listening. Michael's mouth moved, a word half-formed, a protest half-born. Karoline raised a hand gently, stopping him without even looking in his direction. Out of respect, she said, I won't play it here. This isn't a trial. Not tonight. A visible wave of relief washed over a handful of faces too soon. But, Karoline continued, her voice crisp, the media has it. The public has it. By sunrise, the world will hear who really claps for service and who mocks it behind closed doors. Gasps, audible now. No one bothered to hide them. Michael's face had drained of color, the tight smile now a grim slash across his lips. Karoline set the folded paper down, almost tenderly, like it was something sacred. And when that moment comes, she said, her voice dropping low enough that the entire room leaned closer without realizing it. No spotlight, no fancy suit, no Instagram apology will be enough. She smiled, then a small, quiet smile, not of triumph, but of justice. The crowd sat frozen, knowing the tidal wave coming was bigger than any speech, any event. Michael tried to stand, as if salvaging dignity would make any difference now. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. Cameras whirred to capture every awkward movement. Karoline stepped back from the podium, her final words cutting the silence clean in half. Tonight, she said, service isn't the punchline, it's the one writing the story. With that, she turned, the hem of her midnight blue dress sweeping behind her like a banner. The room erupted not in applause, but in a thunderous, chaotic roar. Flashes, shouts, reporters racing for their phones. Michael stood frozen in the middle of it all, a king without a crown, a mocker without an audience. And Karoline, walking into the blinding corridor of cameras and truth, didn't look back once. Karoline returned to the podium, her steps measured, deliberate. She raised one hand lightly, palm open toward the audience, almost as if inviting calm or warning them to hold their breath. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice smooth as glass. Tonight isn't over yet. The crowd, a stew of curiosity and dread, shifted in their seats. Cameras found her again, zooming in like vultures circling. Karoline gestured toward the massive screen positioned discreetly at the side of the ballroom. It flickered once, then went black, then lit up with the logo of the Grand Liberty Awards. She waited, her hand still calmly raised. Because the loudest laughers, she continued, a razor-thin smile tugging at her mouth, always have the most to lose. A ripple tore through the audience whispers, side glances, a palpable tightening of nerves. Michael, sitting near the center of the front row, froze in place, his knuckles whitened where he gripped the chair's armrests. The screen cut sharply to video footage. It was Michael, unmistakable in a sharp suit, drink in hand, surrounded by a small group of equally well-dressed elites. The audio, crisp and devastating, filled the grand hall. So what if they served? I did 2 weeks at a damn summer camp once, where's my parade? The group around him exploded in laughter. Another clip. Michael again, mimicking a limping soldier, exaggeratedly dragging 1 foot behind him while slurring, "Thank you for your service," followed by another roar of cruel laughter. The room froze, not a polite, professional silence, but a brutal, bone-deep stillness. Gasps shot through the air like gunfire. Chairs shifted. Someone somewhere dropped a glass. The crash splintered. The tension, but only barely. In the back, some of the veterans, stoic and proud moments ago, looked like they had been punched in the gut. Michael sprang to his feet. "That's fake," he shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "That's deep fake garbage. It's edited. It's not real." Heads turned toward him sharply. No one was smiling now. Karoline didn't flinch, didn't even blink. She let him sputter into the rising awkwardness of his own making, then returned her gaze, not to Michael, but to the stunned audience. "If service is your punchline," she said, her voice cutting through the noise like a bell, "then you are the joke." Silence slammed over the Grand Liberty Awards like a lid sealing a coffin. No polite laughter, no fake clapping, just a suffocating, brutal quiet. Veterans began standing one by one at the back of the room, arms crossed, faces grim and proud. Their movements were slow, deliberate, and when seen from the stage, it must have looked like a tide rising against the shore. Michael, still on, his feet paled as he turned, seeing the sea of decorated uniforms and determined faces rising against him. He realized his audience was never who he thought it was. Michael opened his mouth again, desperate to claw back control, but the words dried up in his throat. The silence, heavier now, pressed down on him from all sides. No one rushed to his defense, not his campaign managers, not his wealthy donors, not even the smiling faces that had laughed along just minutes ago. Karoline stepped slightly forward, her voice dropping to a tone so calm it was chilling. "You see, ladies and gentlemen," she said, "character isn't what you perform under spotlights. It's what you reveal when you think no one's watching." The screen behind her shifted again, more footage. Michael at a private fundraiser mocking low-income families, joking about buying votes for $50 and a sandwich. Another gasp from the audience. A woman near the front visibly recoiled. "You chose to mock service," Karoline said, her eyes locked on Michael's shrinking form. "Because in your world, sacrifice is weakness, honor is a costume, and loyalty is just something to auction to the highest bidder." Michael staggered sideways, bumping into a table, sending silverware clattering noisily to the floor. He pointed, a trembling finger toward the stage. You're a liar," he croaked. "This is all staged." Karoline tilted her head slightly, the smallest gesture, but it sent a clear, ruthless message. "You're done." The room stayed frozen, the mood now electric and razor-thin. Another figure stood up, a Medal of Honor. Recipient, broad-shouldered and unblinking, arms folded tightly across his chest. One by one, more veterans and guests rose, not in applause, but in silent protest. Not a word spoken, not a shout, just a rising wall of disapproval that Michael could neither scale nor dodge. For the first time in the night, Michael truly looked small, not physically but morally. His face, red and glistening with sweat, twisted into something desperate, almost childlike. He muttered curses under his breath, yanked at his jacket as if suffocating, and stumbled toward the side exit. Nobody followed, nobody called after him, nobody stopped him. Karoline remained. At the podium, the picture of calm resolve. She watched without gloating, without smirking, without so much as a satisfied sigh, because she hadn't come for revenge. She had come for truth, and truth finally had answered. When the ballroom doors swung closed behind Michael, a different kind of silence settled over the Grand Liberty Awards. Not the stunned, heavy silence from earlier, but a solemn, almost sacred quiet, the kind reserved for moments when masks shatter and reality steps forward. Karoline took a slow breath, her hands resting lightly on the podium's edge. She looked out at the crowd leaders, families, veterans, young people, old, heroes, and nodded once, firmly. "This," she said softly, "is what real service looks like." A single hand clap broke the stillness, then another, and then, like the slow build of a storm finally breaking, a tidal wave of applause rose to meet her. Not polite, not performative, real, earned. The Grand Liberty Awards would never be the same again. The fallout was immediate and brutal. By the next morning, every major news outlet was replaying the footage on an endless loop. The moment Michael mocked veterans, the veterans standing up in protest. Karoline's cutting words echoing through the grand ballroom. No spin, no editing, just raw humiliation, broadcast to millions. Michael's PR team scrambled frantically, flooding inboxes with press releases, arranging rushed interviews, begging for a second chance to clarify the context. But it was too late. The clip had gone viral, slicing through the internet like wildfire. Social media erupted. The hashtags, respect over fame and service matters, surged to the top of trending charts. Within hours, memes flooded every platform. Side-by-side images of Michael laughing at veterans versus Karoline standing firm under pressure. Commentators from every political angle, left, right, and center, condemned Michael's behavior. Sponsors noticed, by the end of the day, 2 of his biggest endorsements had quietly pulled out, issuing vague statements about values not aligning. More followed. Commercials featuring his face were scrubbed. Billboards were taken down overnight. Hollywood's elite, always sensitive to public sentiment, began their slow retreat too. Directors who had once clamored to work with Michael now issued bland statements about creative differences. Popular actors unfollowed him on social media, a small move, but one that sent clear signals inside the industry. And through it all, Karoline said almost nothing. No gloating victory laps, no fiery retweets, no celebration tours, just a single, quiet statement posted to her official account. Public service deserves honor, not derision. No hashtags, no images, just 14 words, and somehow it hit harder than any 1,000-word speech ever could. While the world watched Michael's fall from grace, Karoline's presence remained as calm as it had been that night. The next day, an unexpected shift occurred. Veterans groups across the country took to social media to thank Karoline for her stand. Emails flooded her inbox from community leaders, regular citizens, and even military families, all expressing their gratitude for calling out the arrogance of a man they once admired. She didn't respond to any of them. Not directly. She didn't need to. Her silence, her refusal to capitalize on the moment, said everything. Hollywood had started distancing itself from Michael B. Jordan, but Karoline, she stayed true to her words. Not a single interview, not a single red carpet appearance. She knew what mattered, and it was never about the applause or the flashing cameras. As the week wore on, the damage to Michael's reputation became irreversible. The respect over fame hashtag wasn't just a trending topic. It had become a movement one that asked a simple question. Why are we elevating those who mock those who serve? Why are we worshiping fame over substance? And with each passing day, the answer seemed clearer. Karoline's quiet victory echoed louder than any victory speech she could have delivered. She didn't need a podium. She didn't need fame. She just needed truth. And that was the loudest voice in the room. Hollywood's cool crowd may have shifted away, but Karoline had already moved on to bigger things. The real work, the real fight had only just begun. And for the first time in a long time, it wasn't about her. It was about everyone who had been overlooked, ignored, or laughed at by those like Michael B. Jordan. Backstage, Karoline stood alone, watching as the crew started stacking the empty chairs. The Grand Liberty Awards, a night that was supposed to celebrate political achievement and service, had now become a battleground of its own. But she wasn't thinking about the applause she might have missed, or the viral moment that everyone was still talking about. She wasn't thinking about the social media storm, the trending hashtags, or even the headlines that would follow her name for days. No, it wasn't about any of that. It was about something far deeper: truth, honor, and the responsibility that came with holding people accountable. As she glanced at her phone, new messages poured in. Veterans who had served with pride, leaders in small communities who found strength in her words, even ordinary citizens, some of whom had never voted in their lives, sent notes of thanks. She didn't need fame. She didn't need the glory. Her stand had been for those who never made the headlines, those who sacrificed everything while others sought to be adored for their image. Karoline slipped her phone back into her bag and stepped outside into the cool night air. The world was still turning, but tonight it had turned on its axis just a little bit more, and the battle, it wasn't over, but for tonight, truth had a microphone.